Continuing on with my 12-part rookie profile series for 2022, we are moving into my third ranked rookie in this class, my 1.03 and 1 quarterback leagues, and probably my 1.04 or 1.05 in Superflex leagues. My RB2 as well, Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. Walker is an interesting prospect to say the least because he had that lack of early production at Wake Forest before transferring to Michigan State and blowing up in his junior 2021 season. But we will cover all of that very shortly, and let's instead just start by looking at Walker's career in college. He entered the NCAA as a 3-star prospect in 2019 with Wake Forest and was the RB2 behind senior Cade Carney, who just came off a 1,000-yard season in 2018. So it's to be expected that he would not be the starter over a senior who was already productive previously. In that season, he had a modest 98 rush attempts for 579 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, and then only added 3 receptions for 17 yards in the receiving game. There's honestly not a whole lot to talk about there in his freshman season, so let's move on to 2020. In his sophomore season, Wake Forest only played 9 games that year due to COVID. However, Walker didn't even play the final 2 games because he actually opted out after playing 7 games. So in those 7 games he played, he totaled 579 yards and 13 touchdowns on 119 carries, still only getting 3 receptions for 30 yards receiving. That 2020 season, however, got the attention of bigger Division I schools, which Walker then eventually transferred to Michigan State for 2021. And at Michigan State, Kenneth Walker was absolutely dominant last year. He had 1,626 yards and 18 touchdowns on 263 carries, and he also saw a small bump in receiving with 13 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. There's really no other way to say this other than this was an extremely explosive breakout season on a team where he got not only significantly more volume, but he was also playing tougher defenses in the Big Ten. He had 7 games with 130 rushing yards or more, including 2 games with over 200 rushing yards by absolutely torching Northwestern in week 1 for 264 and 4, and then again against Rutgers with 233 yards and a touchdown. And his on the map game, so to speak, was against Michigan, where he rushed for 197 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. He was basically their entire offense that game. So moving on to the analytics and using my marker system for running backs, which if you are unfamiliar, I invite you to go back and check out my video on Breece Hall for a more in-depth explanation of those markers. But as a reminder though, the 8 running back markers that I am looking for are first or second round draft capital, weight over 200 pounds, a BMI of 29.75 or more, a sub 4.6 40-yard dash, which then also means a 100 plus speed score, at least 1,000 total yards in your freshman or sophomore season, a career yards per carry of 6 or more, and then 1 season with at least 25 or more receptions. Currently, Walker is sitting at 4 out of 8 markers hit, which isn't great, but let's talk about some of these things first. First, he hits on weight and BMI, being that he's 5'9", 211 pounds. He also hits on speed and speed score with a 4.38 40-yard dash and a 114 speed score, which is actually second in the class behind only Breece Hall. And I will also assume that Kenneth Walker is a second-round pick in the NFL draft, so that will bring him all the way up to 5 out of 8 markers hit when it's all said and done. So the 3 markers that he currently doesn't hit on are all of the production ones, basically, which is semi-concerning, but I will say excuses that I have made in the past for other running backs like Najee Harris last year. Najee, if you remember, did not have early production that I am looking for, but we know that it's just how Alabama works, that's how Nick Saban works, and just the nature even of the running back position usually means that there's only one running back out on the field at a time. So generally, when younger guys come in, their coaches will just generally play the older guys over them. We saw that with Kenneth Walker at Wake Forest, and we saw that with Najee Harris last year as well. So while that early production is a great indicator of potential success at the NFL level, it's not necessarily a death sentence for NFL running backs, especially when a player has no early production, but then later flashes elite production like Kenneth Walker did in 2021. And I was actually so fascinated by Walker's swing and utilization and production from Wake Forest to Michigan State that I actually hit up my guy Ray GQ from Destination Devi and FTN, and I asked him if there was anything that he saw on film that was cause for concern. And basically, his answer was just a flat out no. He is just as confused as I am as to why Kenneth Walker didn't get the opportunity at Wake Forest. He was the same player at both schools. He just was misused at Wake And as Ray so nicely put it, he's chopping it up to total incompetence.
The level of incompetence in this office is staggering.
So as for the other two markers that he misses on, he has a career 5.83 yards per carry, which is so close to that 6 that I'm looking for, but he just misses that baseline. And then finally, his best reception season was in 2021 with only 13 receptions, which isn't great. We don't like that. But to address this aspect of his game, I will say that I am very confident that Kenneth Walker can catch the ball, and his 13 receptions last year is not a good reflection of that. My guy Alfredo Brown from Football Guys also noted this recently as well, highlighting just how horrible Michigan State was at designing screens to Walker, and it's not like their quarterback actually did him any favors either by just not even being able to get him the ball at all on those screen passes. But he can catch the ball, and that is an element of his game that he can bring to the NFL and improve at the NFL level as well to be a true 3-down guy. And I'm not saying that he can just become Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara or even what we think DeAndre Swift's true upside is as a pass catcher, but he can be Joe Mixon, he can be Aaron Jones, and that is more than okay for fantasy football. What's funny about Walker though is because of his size at 5'9", 211, it's a little bit smaller than most NFL running backs, and the fact that he also ran a sub 4.40, he actually comps very closely to guys like Jerick McKinnon, Darrington Evans, Anthony McFarland, guys that we think about in the NFL who are almost strictly pass catchers, yet that's not a skill that Walker is really entering the NFL with based on the numbers. But if you were to stretch that 40 time out to a sub 4.5 and then filter down only onto first and second round draft capital guys, some more interesting comparisons come out. We're talking about guys like DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers, Doug Martin, D'Angelo Williams. Those are all very good names that we like to see. And even as a floor, Felix Jones is also on there as well, which isn't great, but it's not necessarily horrible for Kenneth Walker's career. So he comps very well to players that had good success in the NFL or other players that we think should have success in the NFL with some of those more recent guys. And that gives me confidence in him as a prospect without that early production and to rank him as my RB2 and the 1.03 in this class. Finally, let's talk about landing spots. As I mentioned briefly earlier, I do believe that Walker is a second round guy, and I think the only running back with that shot of being a first round pick this year is Breece Hall. So looking at teams in the early to mid second where I think Walker should go, there are a few that I think would be really good for him to land on. The first is, of course, those Atlanta Falcons, the team that basically needs just about everything on offense. And Walker could immediately come in and make an impact on this team for fantasy football with an absolute ton of volume. And this could be one of those teams that really brings out the upside in his receiving game as well. If you look at 2021, Mike Davis had 58 targets last year and was not the least bit effective on any of those targets. So if you give those same 58 targets to Kenneth Walker, you can sit back and actually watch some real magic happen. So I think Atlanta is a great spot in general for any rookie running back, but Kenneth Walker to the Atlanta Falcons at either the 211 or with their second pick at the 226. Yeah, sign me up for that. The next team is the Seattle Seahawks, and at least at the time of recording this on Wednesday, March 17th, they haven't brought Rashad Penny back. So that could mean that Seattle is in the mix for a rookie running back, possibly. And if they are, they actually have 2 picks now in the second round, back to back at the 2.08 and the 2.09 from that Russell Wilson trade. And like Atlanta, Walker could come into immediate first and second down volume, and there might have to be a little bit of work to get him some targets from insert quarterback here. But we know how much Seattle wants to run the ball, how much they love running the ball, and we've even seen a little bit of receiving work with Chris Carson as well in the past. So Walker could be very valuable in that offense with all of that volume. Lastly, and this does sting a little bit because I really like Michael Carter, but if the New York Jets wanted to invest a little bit better draft capital into a running back than a 4th round pick, they have 2 shots at doing so in the early second at both 2.03 or the 2.06. And this might not immediately be a sexy pick to a lot of people, and I do think there would be some growing pains on an offense that's run by Zach Wilson with so many young players all around him, but I do think Walker can get early down work and a lot of it. The problem here would be receptions, I think that they would also then choose Michael Carter to be the 3rd down guy if they decided to go this route, so we might have some sort of like Antonio Gibson, JD McKissick kind of thing going on in New York. But at least, in Washington, Gibson is still good for fantasy with that first and second down volume. And I think Kenneth Walker would also be really good with that same volume on the New York Jets. It's not perfect, but I think it could work. Houston is actually another team that's very similar to the Atlanta Falcons, where the volume would just be all on Kenneth Walker in that backfield. And I'm not sure if Houston actually pulls that trigger with so much else that they need everywhere else, but it wouldn't be bad from an opportunity standpoint. So I will give an honorable mention as well to the Houston Texans in that early second. So that is my breakdown of my 1.03 Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. Make sure that you hit that like button to let me know that you also love yourself some Kenneth Walker, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you are not yet subscribed to get more content from the DLF YouTube channel as we continue on through rookie draft season up until the NFL draft, past the NFL draft, to help you guys dominate your rookie drafts and your dynasty leagues. So with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.